The clanging echoed through the dimly lit chamber, a sound that seemed to reverberate off the sterile white walls of Site-23. I could feel the tension in the air as I prepared for the next round of tests on SCP-038. This was no ordinary apple tree. It had a sinister secret. I had seen the results of previous experiments, the way objects were birthed from its bark maturing within mere minutes. "Hey, keep your distance," I shouted to the technician adjusting the overhead misters. "We don't want to risk any accidental cloning. Remember what happened last time?" A nervous chuckle came back from him, but I wasn't in a joking mood. A few days ago, someone had cloned a set of keys, and the clones had started aging rapidly, turning into grotesque, fermented versions of what they once were. "Watering it again, Dr. Collins?" the technician asked, glancing at SCP-038, its bark glistening under the artificial light. "Yes, twice a day, as mandated," I replied, my eyes scanning the room. "If the mister fails, hand watering is a must. Hazmat suits, remember? The last thing we need is a rogue clone running around here." He nodded, but I could see the curiosity in his eyes. Everyone was fascinated by SCP-038. I couldn't blame them. The idea of cloning anything, from fruits to electronics, even animals, was intoxicating. But I had seen the darker side of this anomaly. "Let's proceed with today's test," I announced, stepping closer to the tree. I could feel a shiver run down my spine as I reached out to touch the bark. Today, we're testing the effects of cloning a simple object, a mug, something harmless. As I placed the ceramic mug against the tree, I felt a strange thrill. Almost instantly, I could see a shimmering green light enveloping the mug, and within moments, a second mug began to sprout from the bark. "Look at that!" the technician exclaimed, his eyes wide with excitement. "It's working!" But as I observed the process, something shifted in the air. The light dimmed, and the original mug began to tremble. "What's happening?" I asked, my voice laced with unease. Then, without warning, the clone mug fell to the ground, shattering into pieces. But not just any pieces. They were moving, writhing like creatures, and a sickening scent filled the air, something akin to rotten fruit. "Get back!" I shouted, stepping away, just as the shards began to coalesce into a form that looked like a twisted miniature version of myself. Its eyes were hollow, and it grinned with a sinister glee. "What is that?" the technician yelled, his voice cracking. Before I could answer, the clone lunged at me, and I stumbled backward, hitting the ground hard. I scrambled to my feet, but the creature was quick, darting towards me with a surprising agility. "Contain it! Seal the chamber!" I shouted, panic rising in my chest. The technician fumbled with the controls, but the clone was faster. It lunged at me again, and I felt its cold, slimy hands grasp my arm. In that moment, I saw its face, a grotesque reflection of my own, but twisted and decayed. "Dr. Collins!" the technician yelled, finally hitting the emergency lock. As the chamber sealed, I felt a rush of relief. But it was short-lived. The clone was still there, slamming against the glass, its hollow eyes filled with malice. "Containment breach," I murmured, my heart racing. But then something surprising happened. The clone began to age rapidly, just like the others had. Within moments, it shriveled up and collapsed, leaving behind a putrid mass. "What the hell just happened?" the technician gasped, panting heavily. "I don't know," I replied, my voice shaky. "But we need to report this. We need to find out how to control it." As I turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of the remnants of the clone, the grotesque form now rotting away. But as I looked closer, I noticed something chilling. Among the decay, I saw a familiar object, a tiny green mug, just like the one I had touched. It hadn't just cloned the mug, it had cloned me. "Let's get out of here," I said, my voice barely a whisper. But I knew deep down that the real horror was just beginning.